So, who are you? This can be a demanding question, so maybe we can start from this. It is difficult to detach oneself from one's story. When you leave definitions and identities because they constitute who you are, when you try to make space for just being, and thoughts and ego will try to enter, disrupting the present moment because they have to be with you. And when I speak of the ego, this is a part of your identity which attaches itself to conditioned or taught ideas, opinions, standards, fears, and any other situation that is considered to be safe, to be normal, to be conforming to the society. That is what your ego holds. And so your thoughts, your ego will try to enter when you just want to be and when you don't want to attach yourself from a single story, because they have to see their marks, influences, and control over you. Your conditioned, your imposed identity wants to control you. This can be in statements that you have to be this, you have to be that. This is your story. Do not just observe. This is you. Do this. Think this. It will go on and on, just so you can be anchored in that story that your ego wants you to identify with. Any other story apart from this will be considered unsafe and uncomfortable because these are not the norms. These are not what's expected of you. So it will try to pull you from just being without these stories. And when I speak of stories, these can be literal stories of realities or truths or any type of events or phenomena that we co-create. And the truth is, there are multiple truths, there are multiple narratives, sides, facets of us. And one story is not the end of all story of your story. It is not you, most especially this story that your conditioned self wants you to stay in does not define you. The story, the definition or identity that your mind and ego wants you to anchor yourself in is just a story. It is not the whole of who you are. You are a whole, complex, and indescribable being altogether. Although you can be described, but these descriptions cannot encompass or encapsulate all that you are. You can be labeled, but the labels are not you. You can feel a myriad of emotions, but the emotions are not you. You can receive praises and accomplishments even, but these two are not you. So critics, whether it be criticisms or praises, they do not constitute to who you really are. What are you then becomes the question. Or who are you? And since our internal chatters and conditionings are loud. They will make that question seem uncomfortable and impossible. So they will try to limit you because in these limitations, in these descriptions, confirmations to society, you will be secure, you will be definable. However, knowing that you are you, and at the same time, all of you that is yet to become, and all of this is resistance to these impositions and limitations. You can be one thing. You can be a writer, a singer, a student, a daughter, but you can also be a dreamer, a visionary, an innovator. You can be one thing, but you can also be two things and all others. You are not just one thing. What you are then becomes simple yet complex. It is all here, you, and at the same time, the possibilities are endless. If you conform and identify yourself as one thing, story, or identity, what happens is when you outgrow your story, this story, it will make you feel lost. The story will be gone, and it will feel like your identity is gone as well. This is one of the risks of identifying oneself with something when the base of our lives is impermanence. So all of this are present but also simultaneous. Creation is done, but there is also co-creation within. Everything is simultaneous. So when one identifies with something that they have composed themselves because it is what they find most appealing, this will make the question, who are you, even more difficult. So attachment to any definition will cause a sort of internal conflict in the end. The simple key is to detach oneself from stories altogether. And instead of being that story, you are the writer, the author, the illustrator, the publisher of that story. And that story is not equivalent to all that you are. So there's no attachment to it. It just is. You are not the story. It just is. So whatever happens, it just is. When we see life this way, it will be grace for us to steer and maneuver it, because we will not be worried that much if we cannot keep up with the story that we idealize, because we are just living, we are just experiencing things. That is what's important. Doesn't matter if the story is not pristine or it doesn't come out as what our ego, our mind, our internal desires of unclear intentions want them to be. We are just travelers, observers, and humans that live and just being. Detachment from any story or narrative gives us all the freedom and space to change our days, our lives, our beliefs in any moment, in any second of our lives. We can rewrite every single thing because we are not attached to a single story. Everything is planned, but at the same time spontaneous. Who are you then becomes a question that can be answered with a smile, with a laugh, with a cry, or perhaps with silence. It doesn't matter, because that question, it can be answered by the heart or with the wisdom of a light, welcoming, and authentic soul. Light, bliss, and love to you. I love you. And blessed be.